You know, there's a bunch of hurdles that you have to jump through within the first few seconds of me deciding to whether or not to do business with you. If you don't clear them, I'm not going to be your customer. You work hard to get visitors to your site or to your store, to your business. Don't let them walk away just because you didn't show them how to trust you. We're not so much shopping on the street corner anymore, I guess. Well, I am since I live in Puebla, Mexico most of the time. But in a digital first economy, trust signals really aren't optional. They're like the fundamental currency that converts someone who's skeptical and undecided into your caring and confident customer. Hmm. So to me, a trust signal is any evidence, explicit or implicit, that reduces the perceived risk of doing business with you. Like, are you going to be here 2 weeks from now? When a user lands on a site, they're subconsciously looking for any reason to leave. Trust signals are the anchors that keep them there. So, can you guess where I look first when I get an email in my inbox? That's right, the from address. Are you an SEO expert with a fancy agency sending me an email to my Gmail from a Gmail account? Well, you're either not a fancy agency or you're such an enormous spammer that you have to use somebody else's domain reputation because yours is shot to hell. So, bye, Felicia. So, let's talk about the anatomy of trust signals. I categorize them into three distinct buckets based on how they influence a potential lead. One is social proof. This is the others did it and they survived sort of signal. It includes testimonials, case studies, and user reviews. I just set up my Trustpilot account today because my site was already over there, but it was unclaimed. So I claimed it and I put some information on there and I've asked a couple of people to review it already. So if you want to do that, by the way, shameless plug, just go to trustpilot.com and look up the BuildRunKit. And well, it might be disingenuous for you to review me if you haven't used our software, but if you feel compelled, please do so. Anyway, so for a founder, that might look like a build in public blog or newsletter or a high rating on those platforms like G2 or Trustpilot. So the next type of trust signal is going to be an authority and expertise, like a competence trust signal. This proves that you really are who you say you are. You actually know what you're doing, and think of this as your credentials. So for me, this would be 2 careers at Microsoft, leader in enterprise support management, author of the startup self-check, and things like that. So this could include industry certifications, published books, guest appearances on reputable podcasts like the Frenzied Founder, or even uh, deep dive white papers. Right. And so finally, security and reliability. So the safety trust signals. And these are things like your SSL certificate on your website. Believe it or not, there was a time that I recall where not all websites had that little S at the end of HTTP, and it was actually possible just to have an insecure website, and nobody really cared. Of course, those days are gone. Other examples are clear privacy policies, professional domain names, and visible contact information. If those are missing, the most glowing of testimonials isn't going to save the sale. Think about the founder that decided to go with a domain like mytool.godaddysites.com and use their website builder, powered by GoDaddy. Might as well be GeoCities. Does anybody remember what GeoCities is? Anyway, later we'll talk about borrowed trust. This is the opposite of that. So let's talk about this, and then when we're finished, I'm going to give you access to a free guide of how you can set up good trust signals for your business. So here's a fancy word for you, fancy concept: conversion rate optimization. Just remember that, because that's what we're trying to improve here. Conversion rate optimization is just saying, if 100 people hit my website, are 3 people staying and buying something, or 27 people staying and buying something? So we're trying to make that number higher by making sure that we have good trust signals. So let's talk more about them, right, and why they matter now more than ever. So, we already kind of talked about there's no more Sam at the butcher shop. We're doing business with people that are further and further away and unknown to us. So the barrier to entry for starting a business is lower than ever. Look, they even let me in, which unfortunately means the amount of stupid fake offers and the potential for scams and is at an all-time high. So, so for that reason, trust signals do a lot of heavy lifting. They lower the friction to buy. Every person comes with a cognitive load, and trust signals kind of like clean up that mental. It's like a mental bypass from "this is a scam" to move straight to "will you solve my problem?" And so SEO and visibility. The search engines will do some of this, some good work for you if they can trust you. Google uses signals referred to as EAT: experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness to rank content. So authentic trust signals like good backlinks from reputable sites or a clear about page actually help you get found and help you not work so hard to get people to your website. And then humanizing the brand, especially for software as a service or remote services. Trust signals like a meet the team section or a founder's video message can bridge the gap between a cold interface and a human relationship. People, especially now, they want to know that they're not just dealing with AI, that there's humans in the organizations, somewhere. So, a practical perspective, if you're building a modular software ecosystem like mine, or launching a book series like I am, your trust signals need to be integrated into the journey. So, for example, the the Goldilocks approach. Don't, some of my programs are called Goldilocks because I think they're just right. They're not too complex and they're not too dumbed down. So don't just claim that they're just right. Show the specific logic and the reason behind it. Transparency itself is a trust signal. And then a hyper local focus. If your business supports it, um, target like specific local markets that having a localized physical presence or deep understanding of local regulations or having that Chamber of Commerce seal on your front door. These serve as massive trust indicators or trust signals that a generic global competitor or AI can't match. So ultimately, it's just about integrity made visible. So where do social networks fit into trust signals, you might be asking yourself? Well, there's no lower hanging fruit actually than an active presence on social networks to boost your credibility. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I spend so much time making information available and posting on socials. So this is where you can sort of wear your credentials on your sleeve and be helpful and present yourself and the way you want to be seen as an authority and show that your business is actually in business. And it's not enough to post twice a year. I think it'd be better to have no, YouTube panel, for example, at all, than have one where your last post was in 2011. And that said, you're not going to post on your own. You're just not. So you can just stop lying about that. You have to hire this done. So, but chin up. Um, with a few hours of somebody's time and some cheap software, you can get this done pretty quickly every week. In the guide that I'm going to send to you, if you click on the link in our description, um, I've got some ideas for you how to find that person to help you out. So in just a minute, I'm going to stop and do a little demo, and I'm going to show you what some of my trust signals are. And I'm also going to show you, speaking of socials, since we're talking about that, um, how I go in just a few minutes and get posts published on, most of my socials all at once and make it really easy so that it's not a really cumbersome process. You could do it on your own, but I'm just saying that you should be honest with yourself and don't try to save money. If you aren't going to be consistent about it, then just you might as well not do it. So really consider hiring it done. So now let's talk about borrowed trust. If you're a new business owner, like my site's relatively new, so borrowed trust is important always, but it really comes in handy when you don't have a lot of trust signals of your own. So it's not about lying or misrepresenting yourself either. You're paying to participate in robust platforms and a secure platform, so you can say so. You can just stop saying, I host my business, because that actually kind of gives the idea of like a server running in your basement or something. You can start saying we leverage the multi-billion-dollar security infrastructure of AWS or Railway or Google Cloud or whatever it is, wherever you host yours. Um, Ours is on Railway, and that's a really resilient environment, and it's very secure, and it's better than we could do on our own. So, um, the signal uh, is kind of passed through, right? If your data is stored in a data center that's SOC 2 compliant, it's got ISO 27001 and it's HIPAA compliant, you can say that. And that's not saying that you're necessarily all of those things, but your data is stored in a secure location. AWS has like 143 security standards. Another example is you're PCI compliant probably if you're collecting money for payments because you're using Stripe or whatever payment platform that you use. You're not just taking your credit card numbers in clear text and storing them in your database. So, not all borrowed trust is good. The road to hell is paved with scammers who try to ride on the trust coattails of the platforms that they're on. The other day, I don't have authorization to tell this story, but I don't care. The other day, my cousin bought a dress from a very fancy looking vendor that he trusted because they were on Facebook. They were on a Facebook ad. So how bad could it be? A nice NYC dressmaker. Well, at the end of the day, she got a dress that arrived very late in poor condition, shipped straight from China, not NYC, and just not what she was expecting, not what she ordered. So that's an example of bad borrowed trust. So what was borrowed? First of all, the trustworthiness of being a seller in the United States that this person, my cousin, would have trusted. Where a few protections still exist, I think. And then two, it's on a trusted platform. I mean, I don't trust it, but my cousin, trusted it because it was on Facebook with, that's sort of, you and I both know that that's probably not a sign of trustworthiness. So all that to say is just don't be shy about talking up the partnerships and things that help make your business trustworthy. But of course, don't straight up lie about who you are. So on to our demo. Okie dokie, folks. I promise you I would show some of my trust signals. So we're going to do that and we're going to go super fast. So here, let's start on my website. First one that I see is this as seen on little scroller. Those are my press releases and the websites that they're on, um, mostly, I think. And then, so moving on, we have this little try it on section that's sort of similar to testimonials, but it's because we don't have a lot of customers yet. We haven't collected a lot of data. So these are kind of how different people would use a software. So that kind of comes across as a trust signal. What else do we have in here? We're willing to accept feedback openly. We have our blog, which we'll look at in a second. We've got our server status, which we'll also look at. Here's our socials. We've got privacy policy. You can manage your cookie preferences. We've got terms and conditions. These are all little micro trust signals that say that we're doing things the right way. Even my chat bot is a trust signal because I can go in here and ask a question and get the answer right away. How do I create web forms? And then we get the answer. And, we had a little negative trust signal here before because if she didn't know the answer, she would just make something up. So we had to change our prompting a little bit so she wouldn't like lie about what the features were. Um, and then, of course, we have regular support, which we'll look at in a second. We've got our server status. This is an important one. I got here from the footer in our on our homepage to know that the services are up and running, and when there's any planned maintenance. The fact that we're using our own software, and we talk about that all the time, is a real trust signal because if I'm not willing to use it, then why would anybody else? And so this is, I'm in the strategy hub right now, planning this episode that we're doing right now. And so you'll see probably you're seeing right now the result of this planning. And then so onto our blog, I may have mentioned earlier, like change log or build in public. We had a build in public newsletter, and I've noticed that's gone from our web page, but I think it's still interesting, even though we're already launched. So I'm probably going to resurrect that, but we do publish every week. This is an old week's information, but we publish every week what we did this week, like what we built, what features we added and updated, and that sort of thing. And so that's an ongoing trust signal. And then we also just put other blog articles out there. And then so our support website, you can actually create a ticket, and we've got some pretty robust knowledge. Have you ever had a software and you go to their website, to their knowledge base, and there's like 3 entries? That's a negative trust signal. And we've got our community. I'm kind of presenting myself as like the boy next door and willing to help because that's really actually who I am. And so on our community page, we have the ability to just chat directly with us and and then come to our community platforms and read about us in the press. And yeah, and then so a little known trust signal that some people actually do look for is this Ahrefs domain rating. And ours was 10, which isn't terrible, but it's pretty low. It's 15. That's getting into a pretty trustworthy range. And for a relatively new site, it's hard. Like there's a lot of work that goes into getting this number up. And we do a lot of work to maintain our linking and make sure that there's no spammy backlinks and all these sort of things to keep these because Google relies on or other search engines rely on some of this same information to decide whether they're going to prioritize your listing or not. I mean, if somebody's going to find your page or if it's going to be on page 5. And then we have our YouTube channel, which we have like a lot of playlists for different purposes. One of them is, well, a lot of them are educational, like just to learn about the product and the books and stuff. And then, of course, one of them is this podcast. And then I have a series of books called Startup Foundations. And so this is me showing the world that I am who I say I am, that I'm helping founders because I know something about founding a company and how to um, do the right thing, or at least some things to think about when you're starting a company. So the first book is already out. That's the Startup Self Check. Ooh, and it's got 3 reviews now, and they're 5 stars. That's great. Um, you don't know how much I struggle to get enough people reading the book to get those 3 reviews. Um, and then, of course, so that's just an example of my trust signals. And then I put this here because this is the one that this is the guide that I want you to download so you can set up some of these things for yourself. And so this is what that looks like. I hope you'll click the link in the description. And then, I promised you a demo of how we would post to all these different socials without spending our full time doing it. And that's in something like Socialmonials. And so I don't actually have the thumbnail for the new episode, so I'm not going to click send here. I just sort of mocked one up here, but all I did was I typed in whatever I'm going to type in, which was of course going to be more, longer than that. Um, and then I have all my socials up here, like my Facebook page and group, my LinkedIn, my company LinkedIn, my assistant's LinkedIn, another LinkedIn for some reason, Blue Sky, Threads. I usually don't flip on, well, sometimes selectively I'll flip on Instagram and Pinterest, but their requirements are kind of off from what I usually do. And YouTube we post manually, so we don't usually turn that on. So all of these posts are ready to go, except I have a couple problems to fix over here with the type of image that Blue Sky and TikTok need to have. And so I'll fix that, and then I'll just add it to the queue or publish it. So you can do this too on Socialmonials or Hootsuite, or there's a number of different software programs that do the same thing. And that's how you can do this and not spend all your time jumping from social to social, because that's what really one of the most important things is that when somebody looks for you online, that they're able to find you, and that your last YouTube video, if you're on YouTube, wasn't from 2011. And so that's that. Back to the regular part of our episode. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. There's just one more thing. And I know I've been flashing it on the screen because I really want you to go download my, setting up your trust signals guide. It's 11 pages long, so it's quick to read, and you should be able to implement a lot of these trust signals really quickly if you haven't already. And so just go to www.brkit.vip/trust. Now, see, that's from my own tiny link generator, which is going to be available soon with your BuildRunKit subscription. I'm already using it behind the scenes. So let me know in the comments what you think some of your most valuable trust signals are, so that maybe I can implement them too, and which ones you're going to implement ASAP. And I will see you next Sunday.